But
Yes.
yeah, next would be a weapon mounted light versus like a pocket carry type light. I've heard it, both guys might want to say, hey, I agree that we need a weapon light or at least light at night. So I don't carry one on my weapon. I put one in my pocket. Some people do both.
Right.
Man, I kind of do. I got these like cheap $3 little pen lights that are in my pocket
Mhm.
that, if I just need for whatever, it's fine. It doesn't take up any space. I mean, there's some great surefire ones, but I just don't want to carry all that stuff. I always have one on the gun because I need it at night
Yeah.
to see people. So we could go through a million scenarios why that works. I think we touched on it last time. I recommend it. I don't think it adds extra bulk. Like I said, I would just challenge people when they're at night in their daily lives to look around and think if somebody were shooting at me in that dark area to the left or right of me or down this alley, he's not going to,
Right.
this isn't the Wild West where we like square off at 20 paces and who's shooting at you. I think people think that it's very obvious who it is that's shooting at you. And to be honest, that's not always the case. It's massively confusing and it's not going to be a guy that's just standing 10 yards pointing at you in broad daylight. So it's hard to identify that or find that guy.
And the same thing we've discussed as well, even during the daytime, even having a weapon mounted light up there is going to help with your recoil as well. I keep your muzzles, anything, again, the old saying, if you're not cheating, you're not trying, right?
Yeah.
So anything that we can take to a gunfight's not fair. So anything that we can take to our advantage, we might as well.
And I guess the other two common ones I've heard is like, I don't want to be sweeping somebody with a pistol because I'm using my light. Why would I do that? Like the only reason I'm bringing my gun out is because I fear for my life and the life of others, right? Because that's the legal definition. We assume this guy is going to cause me serious injury, death, or serious bodily harm, right? Cool. I'm not just busting it out to look around and find my car keys, right? So if you feel threatened to the point where you need to bust this out and you need a light, that's great. That argument just doesn't hold up for me. And then muzzling people like, hey man, we're in a gunfight. Like, that's going to happen, right? I'm not going to like just
look at it this way as well. Exactly. But the way I look at it from an EDC, and I'm trying to angle this from experience that we've got towards our everyday carry listeners. But take, for instance, even if it's at night, say you have to call 911 and you don't have a weapon mounted light, how are you going to hold someone at gunpoint with a handheld and then dial 911?
That's true. Also, getting blasted in the face, is to your advantage, right? Yeah, now I've blinded this guy. Maybe I pulled my gun out, I've identified him, I've blinded him, and now I'm just running away, right? Maybe I don't need to shoot him. He's gonna have a tough time seeing me, right? So there's a lot of different options. I know some people just don't like it. It's always a great conversation to have. I guess the people that I run to are kind of just diehard, and so instead of pointing out the realities of it, they're just picking weird fake scenarios that justify it. But again,
it's justification of having any type of kit, I guess. But my experience is it's what works. So I don't carry a lot of things. I'm a minimalist. Like my last video I posted, I don't carry a lot of things, but I carry what works for me and what I've needed from experience.
Yeah. And I would say next with that is, okay, we've talked about the pistol, we've talked about the holster, we've talked about, I don't think we need to get into red dot versus irons. That's easy enough. And then we talked about the light. The next would be, are you carrying an extra mag? And if so, what's the point behind it? And then what are the best ways to carry that or the most comfortable? And so I would say I carry an extra mag only because mags usually are what cause a malfunction. Or if I do have a malfunction with a gun, I could just strip that mag and dump it. So if it's like a almost catastrophic failure, not just a tap rack bang, I don't have to worry about grabbing that mag and retaining it before I manipulate the gun to clear the jam. I'm just like, yes, cool, break that loose. Here we go. Good. I got another one. And if I want to take time because there's a lull in something later and grab it, sure. I try not to make it like a giant extended one. I mean, if it's a Glock 19, an extra 15 round is fine. And then sometimes I'll put it in my pocket. I recommend if you are going to do that, use a Neo mag holder because it actually stages it perfectly in your pocket. It's not going to slide down as if, you didn't have something retaining it or get sideways or all silly. It'll hold it right there in the exact space that you want it. And it also will mimic nose down, bullets forward, which most people carry, or the other way if you want. And there's actually heights. You can select the depth based on the clip. So how far you get. And that's kind of the easiest way.
Same way.
Yeah. I've also done it. I also have in the waistband, single mag holsters, which is fine. I don't run them together. I've tried that before with the pistol, like the sidecar. It just was kind of like a bit much. So I'll usually run the mag, my left-hand side, like maybe at, I don't know, 10, 11-ish. And then there's an extra one there.
Basically, I try to run it to where if I've got a war belt on, where I normally put outside the waistband, I'll put it there so I don't have to relearn another movement.
Yeah, I guess I carry it pretty much kind of in the same spot. Yeah.
So that's what I do.
Wrong.
Again, it's commonality, so it's what you're used to. So you don't have to worry about it. It's one less thing. And the same thing is a lot of guys, like you said, sidecar, to where you can get the holster and the mag together, the carrier together. I've never bought into that, just for the fact, with my experience, everything moved around a lot as far as mission sets. So I didn't want to have to carry that way. So if I want to carry it in my pocket, if I want to carry that, if I want to be light, I could do that as well. So give me options.
Yeah, I find that if people sort of like appendix, they're definitely not going to like that because it just feels like too much for them. And you know what, to be honest, if you're carrying a single mag and you're carrying appendix in the waistband, you probably can get away with a single mag carrier outside of the waistband at where because it doesn't really push too much. But if those are the guys that are like, look, I've got enough stuff in my pants, I'm not adding one more, it'll help for sure.
Right.
Yeah. Then I'd say, now it comes down to like, okay, what clothes are we wearing? Because if we're trying to conceal these things, we need clothes that are going to help with concealment. So, I'm wearing right now, it's a fake trucker shirt, right? And for some reason, this fools everybody. I don't know why. But it's pretty big. So if I'm working, I can fit a lot of stuff underneath this shirt. Not to the point where it looks like I'm wearing my dad's shirt, like, and I'm a little kid, like you want to comical. But also on the inverse of that, I'm not wearing like a skin tight t-shirt. So, I don't want people to get crazy and have to buy their own clothes. I mean, I do it for work for a specific reason, but in my regular civilian clothes today, it's just like t-shirts and, regular stuff. I don't buy them extra big, but I also don't really wear my clothes super tight either. So as long as it's enough to accommodate it, that's fine. But if you're a guy that wants to carry 10 things, then you're going to actually have to start buying clothes for that specific reason.
And there's been times with that, we was talking about t-shirts, that I've wore 2 t-shirts, right? To help cover it. Depending on what it was or the action or anything else, I could wear 2 t-shirts that would carry, just give it a little bit more layered. Especially the design of the shirt and everything else, it was a little bit easier.
You can also start lifting weights and work your shoulders out, and then naturally,
I know, right?
Waist, right?
That's my problem.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
that's my problem.
Overseas is a different story, and if you're like a cop and you're undercover, you're going to have a lot of stuff. So you might have to think about like 2 layers, bigger shirts. Now we're getting into the tricks of things like, okay, I've got a button-up shirt, t-shirt underneath. I'm running Velcro to split the sides, like a lot of low pro stuff we did overseas, but I don't think that really relates to everyday carry, but it's worth mentioning.
Well, and the same thing is, though, I've noticed, and you probably do, especially here stateside, a lot of people that EDC, especially if they're not carrying appendix, as one of the things that they wear is a button-up shirt. So depending on what your environment you're in, that a lot of times I will key on button-up shirts. If we're going to the movie theater, if we're going wherever we're at, then I'll key on a button-up a short sleeve button-up shirt in Texas, right?
Yeah.
Depending on what it looks like, I key on it because to me it's like a target indicator.
Yeah, that and some guys, have that kind of like a professional style like that, and they can't hide it at all. So now you need to look at a holster that has deeper clips. And it'll refer to it being tuckable, meaning you can actually tuck your shirt in and still conceal the pistol. I don't really do that, but I can see the need for some people too, and that's a whole other game. So I would just look for reviews on that. But then I'd probably carry the smallest gun possible because if you're already playing that tight of a limit there, I wouldn't want it to be seen. But I'd still recommend appendix. Would be the fastest in that particular scenario. Belts. I used to wear like regular traditional belts, with the holes in it. You got the little clasp, but the adjustments between the two, the next hole and hole 3 and hole 4, like it wasn't enough. There was like major adjustments when I wanted minor ones. So then it was rigger belts for a while, but the problem I'd run into is that if I wore it as a regular belt, it's let's say 3 inches to 4 inches tighter than if I'm running it with all these things in the waistband. Eventually, the buckle will slide. So finally, I saw the ratcheting style belts. I think it's Next Belt and Core. I use Core. It's like $50, and so I can make these finite, like eighth of an inch adjustments by just touching the little buckle release. And so I want to wear a regular belt, great. Maybe it's kind of tight in the car because I'm in there for 10 hours. I'll loosen a little bit. As soon as I get out, I just one hand touch it. And it just has a lot more fine adjustments. And so they have them with dress belt style. They have them, with fake belt buckles on them. They also have them with more of like a tactical instructor belt. I've been running one of those for like 2 years now, and I haven't run into an issue yet. I'd say overall, Core seems to be doing a little bit better than Next Belt from the guys that I know that I turned on to.
Right.
Yeah, it's cheap.
I run the Tenacor Zero Belt, and I've been running it since they released, and I've had no complaints on it. The same way, I can adjust it with one hand, and I can tighten it up with one hand, but it's a little bit thinner, I guess. So
let's say it might help guys that want to get a little fancier, only because the Core belts, they make one that looks like a legit dress belt and a real buckle and everything. So if you're trying not to draw attention to something like that, or you have your shirt tucked in or whatever it is that you're doing. And I always say I run 1.5. I try and run everything 1.5 just because that'll fit almost every single pair of pants. Like a lot of times tactical pants are 1.75. That's great. Sure. But I run the holsters at 1.5, for the loops, every single thing at 1.5, because that's going to fit, my tactical clothing to my normal, like, hey, I'm just wearing jeans. A lot of times those 1.75s, it runs into problems. And it'll catch guys too, because now, I'm stuck with this size belt because the holsters that I ordered, the loops are 1.75, and so that's kind of something to consider to try and streamline everything to make it a little bit more comfortable and easier.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, I'd say like a pocket knife, sure. I mean, who doesn't carry one? I do, just to open boxes or whatever it is that I'm doing. If I'm going somewhere where I feel like it's going to be kind of dangerous, I'll have a fixed blade knife, and I'll run that horizontal with the belt. Some guys I know will do it in the waistband vertically. That's just kind of uncomfortable for me personally. I know a lot of guys that do it. But I'm big enough, again, where I can conceal that vertically, just because the belt sticks out enough to ride that plane when I'm carrying appendix with a pistol. And that really is just for, again, center line-ish, both hands can get them. If your state says it's legal, I prefer to have it be a dagger, meaning both sides are actually the stabbing part or cutting edge. And then that's more along the lines of, if you're trapped, you don't have anything, somebody's got your hand pinned, you can't draw your gun. That's to get somebody off of me. I needed to go to 3 to 4 inches inside that person. And I wanted to go right in, and I wanted to have somewhat of a hilt so my hand doesn't slide down the blade as I'm utilizing this. And it's, get this person off of me.
I started Andy with I'll put the link in the below, but he designed one, but it's like a dagger, so it's not even sharp, right? But it's made out of titanium, so it's just all that is, and it's got a 4-inch blade per se, but it's a sticker, and I believe I got a video on one of them, but it's lightweight, and it's exactly, I carry it on my offside, just so it's weapons retention. It's to get somebody off of me so I can actually get to my weapon.
Yeah, we've got a guy that makes his own forge for fun at work, makes the old push daggers, the ones where it'll, wrap around your hand, and then it's just like a punch straight push dagger. Works with either hand, like a fist, you're good to go. And they're actually pretty small and easy enough to hook onto belts in like various different locations. He makes his own Kydex sheaths, and that's a solid option. You just have to make sure it fits real tight and that it's not going to wobble one way or the other if you're not pushing straight on. But yeah, again, we're kind of getting into, like, I wouldn't say silly territory, but if we're talking about a guy, everyday guy that's going to do something like this, I would question if you're starting to get into that territory. Like, could you avoid just not going to this place? Like,
exactly. Yeah. I mean, situational awareness has a lot to play with this. So, I mean,
another thing,
should you carry a backpack gun?
Yeah, well, you can call the truck rifle. Well, that's another game. I mean, I've done it in the States, man. Yeah, I don't know. That's gonna, and then I'm not gonna just leave it there. I'm honestly probably just gonna have it ready to go, sitting next to my leg while I'm driving, as we did. And then that's gonna be my jam. And then, if that stops working or something horrible happens, fine. Then it's a pistol. But you could also add in another 20-round M4 mag on your belt. People wouldn't notice. and then you got a 30
We
in the
did that
gun.
for years.
Yep. But again, if I feel the need for all of that, I am not going to that place.
No, I
If it's
agree.
if it's up to me, if it, I do it, but if it's up to me, yeah. And then I'd say like first aid, like, it's always good to have first aid in your car. I mean, we've got the silly ones for like, oh, I cut my finger, to, oh, wow, this is like a serious accident. And really we got turned on to this by the GRS guys. We were over there. They were starting to make their own ankle holsters. They would carry like just enough for you. Like, okay, I've got Curlex, I've got a tourniquet, I've got a chest seal or two, and then possibly, at the time, quick clot combat gauze, whatever it is at the time. And it was enough around your leg where nobody could really see it, like it wasn't getting silly, like how big it was. And so if you really wanted to, and in this scenario again, we're driving somewhere, cool, we've got our pistol in the waistband appendix, we've got a spare mag, we've got a knife, whether it be a pocket knife or a fixed blade, and I've got medical wrapped around my leg. No matter what happens, all of that stuff's with me. So guys that know first line gear in the military, right? It's not that, oh, my first aid bag is over here, because we're just assuming that we're staying in our car the whole time, and that whatever happens, we're getting back to the car. Like if it's not with you, it's cool to have, but don't count on having it, right? If it's not strapped to you. So I just want to point
because
that
the one
out.
time you need it, you won't have it just because it's there.
Yeah, who knows? Somebody shut up your car, and now you make a run for it, through an urban environment. But like, well, I'm not going back to my car, but I did get shot in the arm. It'd be great if I had a tourniquet right now. So, and again, that's super cumbersome. It's not an everyday carry. It's an option. And if you're going to an area where you think it'd be nice to have something like that, that's probably what I would do. I have done it. And I would say probably won't go into battle belts because that doesn't really have anything to do with EDC.
Yeah.
I'd say I'd be surprised if you were wearing an inner belt and then had an outer belt to put over top of it with all of your stuff on it, and you could still hide it. I just don't think that's possible. So I don't think it really covers. I guess the next thing is I actually got a lot of insight from a couple people is that, everything we discussed is kind of relatively easy for like a man to do. But with women, it's really way more complicated. One of the things they might run into is that a lot of women's clothes don't have belt loops, like especially professional ones, right? So there's a couple companies that have developed the Utila clip, right? It's kind of like a pressure clip that folds over so it can grab onto, like, perfect example would be like a sweatband waistband. A lot of their clothes are super form fitting. And a lot of them too, even if they're interested in carrying, are like, well, hey, I don't want to wear, this perceived like dumpy clothes because I'm carrying a gun. There's the Enigma, the belly band. Another thing that they run into if you're a professional is like every day in your life, you're going to be going into government buildings if that's your job, where you possibly can't have a gun. Well, I need to be able to take this off discreetly in my car and store it safely, and then be able to reholster this without it being like a huge event. So that's another thing to consider. And then when it becomes too much of a pain in the ass, just like we talked about with everybody else, you're just not going to carry it. You're going to be like, yeah, I'm done with this. I'm going to mess with it now. And then, another option for them is like an off-body carry. So maybe they have it in a purse or a bag. The restriction with that is it cannot be more than like an arm's length away, because if you need it, it's not there. You also don't want to lose control of it and have somebody steal it. So it's great to have it maybe open next to you as you're getting gas, but if you're walking to the gas station, you have to bring it with you, because now what's the point? So you can either.
And then you got to have that trigger covered inside of it, because we know how we got a lot of floating things inside of a bag.
Yeah, so here's like a little SIG P365 here, right? And it's just a Kydex trigger guard with a lanyard on it, right? So you can keep this thing ready to go. Nothing's going to hit it. It takes an extreme amount of pressure to pull this off, right? And then you're ready to go. So nothing's going to get in. You're not going to have an ND. I would say, you can find these on Amazon. They're, $10. Tie it to the bottom of the purse, however you want to loop it. I mean, to be honest, you can make it shorter and jam it in your
pants. I've seen ladies do that and actually made it longer to where they actually tied it to the strap itself. So everything else was sealed, but when they pulled out, then they were ready to go at that point.
Yeah, that's smart. And it's just something like, if you're trying to get your girlfriend or wife or whomever to start carrying, one of my buddies kind of ran into that same problem where he was like, oh, I do have a compact gun. Like, let's say it's a 365. I do want to put a red dot on it. Okay. Well, we should put a light on it. Well, now the Kydex trigger guard doesn't really fit. He's looking for holsters, and his wife's like, hey, this small gun just got a little bit too big for me. I'm 5 feet.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't really want to carry this thing anymore. And he's still thinking of it from our mindset, like, what can I do? What can I stack on? And from hers, it's like, it's a deal breaker. No. So maybe it's in my purse, maybe it's unloaded. I don't know. So yeah, they have a lot more considerations and restrictions for sure.
And we've got to set their weapon up so they want to carry it at that point. At that juncture, if they don't like it, they're not going to carry it. So that's the reason for them to be armed as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing like we talked about. If I don't have a comfortable holster and I don't like carrying these extra mags, the next thing you know, I'm probably going to be like, I'm just going down the street. Like, you're going to start justifying it to yourself. So if it's something that you feel is serious enough to carry, and this is part of your life, then let's make it as comfortable and convenient as possible. Otherwise, you're going to be that guy that's just like, oh yeah, I didn't bring it, and something horrible happened. Really wish I had brought it to the Walmart real quick. Right? So
exactly.
Yeah, I would say that's the biggest thing. I guess to circle back to like an off-body carry, there's people that kind of do it with fanny packs. I mean, I guess it's technically on you. I would say the same thing to concern yourself with that is like holster, how that's going to set up. And it also ties into like a purse off-body is what's the mechanics of the draw? And then how's that going to work? Do you carry the purse at the same time? Can you grab it when it's not on you but sitting next to you? And then that's something you're going to have to practice a lot. I would say that would be probably pretty difficult.
How many times did we implement even off body to an extent, but when we started implementing training downrange from a go bag, reloading out of the go bag and everything else out of a go bag.
And surprisingly, even with people like that, you're like, he has it set up. He's got his rounds where they should be, his ammo where it should be. I'm assuming he's spent hours with us in his room. I mean, there's nothing else to do. But no, first time you come on the range, it's dumping stuff. He can't get it. It's not easy to sling it forward. It won't stay out of the way. You start running with it. It doesn't work. And you're like, oh, great. Well, I mean, it sucks professionally that I had to force this issue for you to realize it. But again, this is something that you need to do. And you could even force yourself, go to the range with it, be like, that didn't work. Like, it's like a gear shakeout, right?
It was little things like with the go bag. Of course, we'd put it in the floorboard, right? And then we'd actually have the strap across the seat sitting on it. So if we had to bail, then we could snatch it out with us and go with it. So the little things like that even here in the States, right, if you've got to go back for whatever reason, and a lot of people carry purses and like that up front with them. And they'll carry it under their legs while they're driving. So that's another thing that you could look at if you got your weapon and you got to get out of your vehicle quickly, put your strap right there where you can grab it and go with it.
Yeah, you could just pin it literally under your leg, without it being too inconvenient. I guess I would add that. Yeah, I mean, this will be a whole nother episode, but I'll just put it this way. If your car is disabled or something is blocking it from making any forward or rear progress, you're going to want to get out of that car at somebody shooting as fast as possible.
Yes.
Like so whatever you got.
I'm glad you said that. So that'd be that'd be a coming up quickly episode because I've been getting questioned a lot like that. So that's another thing when you get freed up, then we'll have another discussion on the vehicle side of the house.
So that's one thing that we have years upon years of dealing with that, whether it be training and trying things out or real life and figuring things out.
Actually getting in a ambush and even in soft skins.
Blown up.
So
there's a few things. I mean, that's something that I teach mostly at work, but I've helped some people out. And I just say, look, here's a few things you can do in the car in a random weird scenario. But in reality, as soon as this starts, your best bet, again, if the car can't move, is to get out of this and get away from it. And, maybe here's some immediate points of cover around the car. Like, these are all small things, but number one is get away. And so that's again
that's an hour conversation in itself.
But that was the biggest thing. And so, like, if you're one of those guys, and sometimes you see it, they carry appendix, and like, hey, I'm driving 4 hours. You know what? I'm gonna put in my cup holder or put it in the side door. That's great, but I promise you, more than likely, when you need it, even if you're staying in your car, you're gonna be like, oh man, I didn't really practice grabbing that, or I'm in a weird, awkward situation, or I got out of the car for a second, or I had to run away from my car. And it sounds funny because you think, oh, well, I'll just put it back in, before I go into the store. Hey, maybe something happens that's an emergency and you just have to jump out of your car and you didn't think about it. Like, if it's not on you, it's going to be tough staying with you. So again, focus on getting that comfortable belt.
Look at
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
now he has it, right? So
now he's got it. So
for me, it's like having that comfortable belt, after a while, if it's tight enough, it's annoying. So having the ratchet adjustments where it's easy to do on and off important. And the holster, making sure it's not stabby. Or maybe my gun's too big for my body, right? I don't really run into that problem, but some people do. Like, great,
Right.
let's find that medium, that gun that works out for us and can do what we want. But yeah, it's like comfort, the position. Can you get to it in every position that you're in life, standing, sitting, whatever? And then we've talked about the holsters enough, and I feel like this is a good like baseline of just things to consider. Not
No, I agree.
necessarily you have to buy this or you have to buy that. It's just
And then
things to consider.
and to finish up, but to touch on the female aspect of it, gentlemen, um, take your significant other out and let them try different weapons. Go rent one. Don't just get one because you like it and say, okay, here, you need to shoot this.
Oh, this is yours.
Now, I've seen that a lot as well. I'll do a ladies only class.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are you shooting this? Well, that's what he likes. I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah. So that's a little thing to discuss as well. But
or the old I got you a 38 special revolver, and then
you need a 38.
Or and the next you hand her like a Glock 10 millimeter, she's tearing it up, right? Like they're more than capable, and most of the time better shooters anyway. So
exactly, agreed.
Let them decide. Hey, I like the feel of this. Cool, great. So
well, brother, as always, I appreciate you making time for me to come on and try to pass some knowledge on to the listeners. Hopefully, it helped.
It's cool.
We'll try to post this up again, and then when you get freed up, if there's any questions or anything like that, we'll do another Q&A live just to help some people out.
Yeah, because like I said, we just barely touched the surface of this.
Oh yeah, we just scratched the surface.
Yeah, there's a million questions, a million different things, a million different jobs, and there's so much more you could do, and then we have done like 50 to 60 different setups for this.
I mean, even with this, we've discussed a lot of the comments or questions that I receive a lot of. So something like this, and that's what we're trying to do here is give my perspective and then give Ryan's perspective. So you get two different perspectives because everybody's not the same.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but again, guys, like, subscribe. If you got comments, leave them below. We'll address them. And I appreciate you guys tuning in, and stay safe.